All right, this is going to be about what is flexing the pineal gland. And this is a phrase that I've used for the past 15 plus years. And I used it first on the top science blog by the University of Minnesota biology professor P.Z. Myers. And I claimed I could flex my pineal gland at will, and how I can feel this magnetic bliss in the center of my brain. And so when I flex my pineal gland, it's this sensation of turning my thoughts around. So I'm focusing my thoughts back into the center of my brain and then feeling an increase in a magnetic, blissful sensation. So I can kind of do it when I'm talking, but not as well. And so if I'm not talking, then when I flex the pineal gland, then I can also transmit energy out of the pineal gland externally. But I don't have to flex the pineal gland in order to transmit it. So flexing the pineal gland focuses the energy back to the pineal gland. So I never, I got banned from PZ Myers' blog for being woo-woo, and also I was just kind of having a good time and sort of making fun of the standard science. But PZ Meyer, he teaches in a farm town campus in Minnesota. So I was razzing him about the University of Minnesota, since I was a graduate student there. So I knew some of the inside politics of the university, and at any rate, that was part of him banning me, because I was kind of making fun of his whole worldview on science. And at any rate, so I was just watching Stuart Hameroff's recent Mind and Matter talk that Basil Hiley told me about. It is an unlisted video on YouTube. So I want to thank Professor Hiley for letting me know. And I've heard Professor Hameroff's talk several times, and I've corresponded with him several times since over 15 years ago. But each time he clarifies the research with more detail. And so he was talking about the Benjamin Libet experiments, and how he had Benjamin Libet give presentations at their consciousness conferences. And essentially, what's really interesting is that for somebody to be conscious of a sensation, so they stimulate the fingertip, and then they also stimulate the part of the brain that's exposed, the cortex, that would trigger that fingertip sensation. And so if they just stimulate the thalamus that has to process the signal from the fingertip without stimulating the cortex, then the person is not consciously aware of it. Yet when they stimulate the cortex and the finger, the actual awareness is before the cortex has been stimulated, so that the cortex stimulation takes half a second for the person to become aware of it. But if they stimulate the finger before they stimulate the cortex, and the signal is it's in the microseconds from my understanding, and which would be a ultrasound in the kilohertz. And so then Hameroff goes on to explain that the idea here is that you're having a reverse time of awareness, so that your consciousness is actually the neuron directly through the tubulin signal, and then once it reaches the pyramid neuron in the prefrontal, below the prefrontal cortex, then it has a reverse time signal in the tubulin with the microtubule as a non-local quantum consciousness. And so this means that there is a delay, but the actual consciousness is the understanding as a feeling or a sensation as a qualia. And as that signal builds up in amplitude with enough tubulin stimulated, and it has to be like, I think it's like 10,000 microtubules, then there is a conscious awareness due to the gravitational collapse. But the interesting thing is that conscious awareness only happens because the tubulin also is erasing the non-local signals that are otherwise subconscious. So you only become conscious of a certain amount of signals, and the rest remain erased in reverse time at the terahertz biophoton frequency level. So it's holographic. And so this made me realize that this is exactly what Eddie Oceans defined as free will, based on the quantum noncommutative logic. And so the reverse time signal is noncommutative, as with the space-time that Penrose is describing. And so the noncommutative logic is what Eddie Oceans, he calls it neither A nor not A. And that's the logic of the quantum superposition as a non-locality. And so that logic, he says that Eddie Oceans, when he was working at SLAC, the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center on quantum psychology, he said that is the basis of free will, is the ability to inhibit the lower subconscious signals. It's the ability to say no as a conscious signal. And this is precisely what meditation is that you are in, like in Buddhism, it's called Neti, which is one of the Hindu philosophies. This means neither this nor that. And essentially that is the logical inference that Socrates was teaching as know thyself. So that in the pre-Socratic philosophy, the self as being was actually light, as spirit. And to know thyself is then to essentially logically listen to the source of the I thought, because all thoughts are based on the I thought. And therefore you're inhibiting all thoughts logically without any kind of mantra. So it's not a mechanical process. And this is what Ramana Maharshi emphasizes, the secret of vichara. And then eventually the frequency increases where you're seeing light internally, but then you listen to the source of the light. Now, where it gets interesting is Hameroff said that when the microtubules, for the pi resonance quantum non-locality, they have to be bidirectional in the pyramid neurons, so that you get the tubulins going the opposite directions, and that's what creates the noncommutative phase of the pi resonance of the electrons with the 1/2 spin. And he says that once the microtubules leave the pyramid neurons, then they go towards they're going across the brain horizontally in the deeper layer of the cortex, but then they start going into the brain stem. And when they do that, then they lose the bidirectionality of the microtubules, and therefore they lose the conscious awareness. And that's why when you stimulated just the thalamus directly, there was no conscious awareness of the signal. So this means that when I'm turning the light around, I'm using the biophoton signal that's emanating out of the microtubules, and then I'm turning that around, because in meditation this is called turning the light around, which is your internal coherent biophoton signals, or what they call spirit, and then so I'm actually inhibiting the thought before it collapses, and therefore I'm resonating with the future as the precognitive non-locality, because once the conscious thought occurs, then it's in the past compared to the quantum non-local non-commutative phase of the pi resonance of the tubulin. So as Hameroff points out, he says, well, at the thinking level, it's not quantum, it's still classical. And this is why you get these logical paradoxes of the Cretan's liar paradox, where Cretan says, I never tell, the Cretan liar said he never tells a lie, or something like that. So I might have got that word wrong. All right, and Eddie Olshan says that the Cretan liar's paradox is solved by the quantum logic, where you can have it as an individual subset of the truth, as long as you're assuming that the future and the past can overlap in a neither this nor not this logic that exists in a 0 point of space, so that the non-commutative phase is a negative frequency and reverse time with the virtual photons. And so you're able to actually absorb the virtual photons by listening to the source of thoughts, because the highest sound we can listen to externally then resonates our brain internally as ultrasound. And there, Anuri Bandyopadhyay, that he corroborated that the microtubules are resonating at ultrasound, and that's the common frequency point, because it translates the mechanical phonon or acoustic vibrations into the electromagnetic at the gigahertz, at the megahertz frequency of the microwaves. And so this is why I can feel microwaves. Also, I can sense like the microwave electromagnetic pollution from cell phones, and even when it's leaking out of microwave ovens, it'll leak out of the doors. And so essentially the ultrasound is a mechanical, it's okay, the collagen is 90% vertically aligned in the body, and it's piezoelectric through the ultrasound. And so this is where it gets interesting, because the collagen has the microtubules inside it. And so therefore, when you do the training of the 3 gunas in India of yoga, or the yin-yang emptiness of Taoism, what you're doing is you're ionizing your microtubules through the yin qi and yang qi, so that the whole body becomes polarized. So you're literally realigning the microtubules in the body, so that the conscious awareness is able to extend down through the whole body without needing to rely on the delayed signal of the prefrontal cortex. And that's why you can have psychometry. Psychometry means you can have the charge strong enough in your hands where you're able to touch something in your hands, and then you can actually have a precognitive vision of the energy of the other people that have touched the object. And especially, like, if that's why the Qigong masters, they refuse to wear like used clothing, because when you buy used clothing, it has stored up the charge at the space-time level as the magnetic moment of the virtual photons. And so when your whole body is what they call nirvikalpa samadhi, when you touch something against your skin, then you will still have that polarized pi resonance of the tubulin with the microtubules through the collagen, which is the most common protein in the body. And that's why the training is difficult, because you're literally realigning and ionizing through the right side vagus nerve that then ionizes the microtubules, so that the lower body neural hormones then increase the neurotransmitters, and then the charge is held in the cerebral spinal fluid, which then circulates back down the front of the body, and then it gets stored in the small intestines and the second brain there with the neurons there. And so you can actually have the equivalent of the prefrontal cortex awareness, but in the lower body, in the small intestines, because the neurons are more than the heart in the small intestines. And so and then it ties into the earth's energy, which is a yin chi, is a negative, and then the heavens energy is the yang chi from the protons. And the protons become delocalized through the splitting of the water. So you have an interface between the water, and Hameroff's big point is that the quantum gravity has to occur in a non-polar inside the tubulin. It has to be non-polar, because that otherwise the electromagnetic charge would destroy the quantum superposition as non-locality. And so it's within the fats that are non-polar, and that's why anesthetics work, because they destroy the non-polar. And if they're polarized, if the fat is polarized as an anesthetic molecule, then it'll allow the signal to keep taking place between the microtubules. And so the collapse of the polarization of the tubulin is it occurs at the 2 hertz, which is a time signal of a half a second. But the frequency as a brainwave is the deep sleep brainwave at 2 hertz. And so whenever we inhibit our conscious thoughts, we are doing it at the same frequency as the deep delta sleep wave. And that's what is called turiya, the fourth state. Beyond you have the waking state, the dream state, and then the deep dreamless state. But then you have beyond the deep dreamless state. And so you're able to maintain conscious awareness without any thoughts, by going beyond the deep dreamless state, by constantly inhibiting your thoughts and resonating directly with the non-local conscious awareness of reality, by turning the light around in the body. And so I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.